I chose my father's funeral over my job, but I never imagined my decision would lead to a department-wide walkout. I'm 35 now, a financial analyst who had been working at a mid-tier software firm in Denver. I wasn't a team leader, nor did I have any special role in office politics. I was simply someone who did his work, clocked in, clocked out, and kept his head down. Until the day I got the call that changed everything. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I was knee-deep in budget revisions when my phone rang. It was my mother. I knew immediately something was wrong from her voice. She told me my father had passed away suddenly from a cardiac arrest. I couldn't process her words at first. My father had been in decent health. We had just spoken the previous weekend. I sat at my desk, overwhelmed by shock and a heavy wave of loss. After gathering myself, I went straight to my supervisor, Laura. She had been managing our team for almost 4 years and was known for her rigid adherence to deadlines and rules. I informed her I needed time off to fly to Georgia, where my parents lived, to attend the funeral and help my mother with the arrangements. Laura barely looked away from her computer when she told me the timing was terrible. The annual review report was due, and I was the key person on it. She said I could have 2 days. No more. It didn't sit right with me. I tried to argue that the handbook clearly stated employees were entitled to 5 days of bereavement leave for immediate family. I even printed it out and returned to her office. She dismissed it, stating that leave approvals were subject to managerial discretion, and at that moment she couldn't allow more than 2 days. I stood there torn between grief and disbelief. I went back to my desk and looked at the family photo I kept beside my monitor. My father, mother, and I had taken it during our last vacation together. The reality hit me all over again. I told my colleague Sam what had happened. Sam was visibly disturbed. He said it sounded wrong and possibly against policy. I wasn't sure what to do next. But I knew I needed to go. I told Laura I was taking a week. I would try to work remotely when possible, but I had to be with my family. Her response was blunt. If I left, I shouldn't come back. She would consider it abandonment of position. I didn't argue further. I quietly packed up my things, told Sam I was going to my dad's funeral, and walked out. That evening, my wife comforted me as I let go emotionally for the first time that day. She told me not to worry about the job. We had some savings and could get through it. I tried not to think about work. The next morning, as I packed for my flight, I received a text from Sam saying that HR wanted to speak with me. Laura had apparently reported that I quit. I called HR, explained the situation, and sent them the required documents to verify my father's passing. The HR representative, Dana, said they would investigate. I appreciated that, but I had more immediate concerns: supporting my mother and saying goodbye to my dad. The days that followed were a blur of funeral arrangements, tears, and quiet moments of reflection. Midway through the week, Sam sent another message. People in the office were furious. Word had spread about what had happened. I didn't know the extent, but I appreciated their support. Despite everything, I logged in remotely a couple of times to contribute to the report, not because I felt obligated to the company, but out of a sense of loyalty to my team, who would have to pick up the slack. When I returned to Denver the following week, there was a message from Dana asking me to come in. I didn't know what to expect. Part of me had accepted that my job was gone, and I needed to start looking elsewhere. But I still went. When I arrived at the office, I noticed an odd atmosphere. People glanced at me, some nodded sympathetically, and a few offered condolences. Laura was nowhere to be seen. Dana met me in a conference room, joined by the company's chief operations officer, Mr. Harris. They apologized sincerely. They told me that Laura had been entirely in the wrong. I was entitled to the full bereavement leave, and her actions violated not just policy, but basic compassion. Then came a bigger surprise. They offered to reinstate me with back pay, and informed me that Laura had been removed from her managerial position. What shocked me even more was what they told me next. After Laura had told the team that I had abandoned my post and that everyone would have to work overtime to compensate, Sam had spoken up. He told everyone what really happened. Others came forward with their own stories of how Laura had dismissed legitimate requests and created a toxic environment. One by one, the entire department had left the office that day. All 20 team members. No formal protest, just silent resistance. They emailed HR saying they would return only when the company took meaningful action. It was a wake-up call. The company took it seriously. They started reviewing leave policies, implementing clearer procedures, and promising protections against managerial abuse. When they asked if I would return, I hesitated. But then I thought of the people who stood up not just for me, but for what was right. I agreed, but under certain conditions. The bereavement policy needed to be non-discretionary. Management practices had to undergo review, and there should be no retaliation against those who stood in solidarity. The COO agreed. The next day, I walked back into the office. The rest of the department returned as well. There was a new interim manager and a noticeable shift in energy. People looked more relaxed. Conversations were more open. It wasn't just about one man's funeral anymore. It was about creating a space where people were treated like humans, not just resources. Now, a month later, things are different. The company is continuing to make changes. Laura remains in a role far removed from decision-making, and I still receive messages from coworkers checking in, not just about work, but about how I'm holding up. I never set out to start a movement. I just wanted to bury my father and support my mother. But sometimes, doing what feels right in your darkest moment can ripple out in ways you never imagined. I still miss my father every day. But if there's any solace in this grief, it's knowing that his memory sparked a change. To everyone watching, thank you for listening to this story. If it touched you, inspired you, or reminded you of the importance of compassion in the workplace, please remember to subscribe to the channel. More stories are coming your way.